So Pacvue is the first end-to-end commerce operating system that's unifying retail media, commerce management, and measurement across 100 different retailers globally. So brands and agencies are using our platform to plan, to execute, and to measure across all these retailers. So think of it as taking the media investments and tying them to sales, profitability, and incrementality. And we do this at scale. So we power about 15% of global retail media today. And what that means is we've got a front row seat to understand what's happening in the industry, but also how do you shape the industry. You asked about trends. There are a couple that are very, very exciting. Again, shouldn't be a surprise, social commerce with TikTok leading the way, the collapsing of the funnel with Amazon making significant investments, and of course, everyone's favorite topic, agentic commerce, a lot happening in that arena, not just with ChatGPT, but the entire ecosystem. And we love it. We think it's one of the most exciting times to be in this space. And we are all in on these trends, making significant investments to transform our own business from a retail media powerhouse to an AI-powered commerce operating system.
And when people have historically thought retail media, they've thought lower funnel because it's closer to the point of purchase. But we're also seeing something you alluded to there, the collapse of the funnel. What's your point of view on the way that's shaking out?
You said it well, the funnel's collapsed. If you think about the consumer today, they are discovering, they're evaluating, and in many cases they are shopping in the same moment, often in the same platform. And the more this happens, retail media has a very unique position to be the connective tissue between awareness, engagement, and conversion. So it's a really, really exciting time. The challenge, however, for brands is that the data is very disparate, right? So if you think about upper funnel signals from awareness to lower funnel conversion signals, it's all over the place, and it's hard for brands to understand what strategies are truly driving outcomes, and more often than not, incrementality. And this is where Pacvue comes in. We have made significant investments to connect the global ecosystem. We've integrated with all the leading DSPs, 100 plus retailers, and several other channels to give brands and agencies the end-to-end view. So you're not just understanding what's happening in a single channel, but across the entire channel. Mm-hmm. And what that's allowing brands and agencies to do is to stop making siloed retail-based decisions or channel-based decisions and move to outcome-based decisions.
We're hearing a lot about the agent opportunity, like the agentic web, and that hasn't necessarily taken off fully yet on the consumer side. Maybe in 2026 it will. But there's surely a confluence of commerce and retail with agentic opportunities. What do you think is the role of advertising in that space?
It's a great question, one we get often. Look, my fundamental belief in society is ads play a very important role to connect brands and consumers. Consumers need advertising to discover new brands. Brands need advertising to get to new consumers. I believe ads are here to stay, but the format is going to shift as you think about agentic commerce. So today, the way I, again, bluntly describe advertising is ads interrupt. Tomorrow, I believe ads are going to assist, where they're going to be naturally embedded in the search process, the conversation process, and ultimately the shopping process. Mm-hmm. Now, if you back up for a second, for an agentic commerce experience to work, you need tremendous amount of context to surface the right information at the right time to the consumer. The LLMs have a lot of information about the consumer side of the equation, but you also need to understand the brand side and the retailer side, all the commerce signals, all the closed loop measurement. And this is where Pacvue comes in. This is why we're so excited about this trend, because we sit on 100 different retailers, we understand the conversion data, we understand the context, and that's going to feed into the LLMs to power the advertising. Mm-hmm. So whilst we're still in experimental stage, and again, nobody exactly knows when it's going to turn on, we at Pacvue are constantly knocking on the door of these LLMs to ensure that we are the first advertising partner when they're ready.
And on retail media, the first couple of waves of introduction of these networks have been the larger, the big scaled retailers. And arguably perhaps the early rollout of AI would be used by larger players as well. Is there an opportunity for the smaller retailers to play in this space?
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you think about the 100 plus retailers we are connected to, and I think stats are like 250 or 300 out there today, it is very cumbersome for brands in the pre-AI era to execute on so many different channels efficiently at scale. So if you really start to think about the overhead, the equation, the math doesn't quite work out. In the age of AI, the cost of entry is significantly reduced because you're able to set up campaigns, execute, measure, optimize, and ultimately tell what campaigns across the retail ecosystem is working versus not. So what that means for the smartest retailers is an incredible opportunity to leverage AI to drive more demand to their systems. And so what was once too small to matter is going to really start to add up at scale.
And just lastly, when you think about AI, some of the large LLM model providers then say that they themselves don't fully understand how these things work. For people in the ad community who care about things like brand safety, how can they have trust in some of the decisions that AI and agents will be making?
It's a great question. I think, when I think about governance, it's all about the guardrails that you put in there. So within the walls of Pacvue, we talk about three concepts. We call it the 3 C's. The first is context, as you said. For an agent to autonomously execute on your behalf, it needs a tremendous amount of context. I'll give a simple example. If you're a brand with a very vast portfolio, the margin profile is going to vary. If the agent doesn't understand the margin profile by SKU, it may start to optimize sales for SKUs that have razor-thin margins. And what that means is your sales are climbing, but your profitability is declining, and that's a terrible scenario to be in. So context is absolutely king, and you have to ensure the agents have full context of your business. The second is connectivity. So as you understand the agentic commerce landscape, it's not a singular agent that's executing on your behalf. It's a series of sub-agents that are all tied together. We call it like the co-pilot in the Pacvue world. It is absolutely critical that they are coordinated and connected and working sort of in concert with each other to drive outcomes. The simple example I use is if you think about how businesses operate today, there's a lot of silos between functions. So you've got the supply chain function, the media function, the content teams. They're not fully aware of each other's goals. That ultimately leads to suboptimal outcomes, right? They may be optimizing for their functional goals, but they miss the company goals. In the agentic world, it is absolutely essential for them to be connected. And then last is control, right? I think you said it. It's this whole space is evolving so rapidly, but it is still evolving, right? It's still sort of nascent in many ways, which means AI will occasionally drift. And it is, again, essential for you to trust the AI that you have the right control. You have real-time visibility, you've got alerting, and you've got control. So even something as simple as a spend cap to ensure your spend doesn't kind of blow up, in the event that the AI drifts, I think is critical. So again, backing up, it's the 3 C's. It's the context, the connection, and the control that I believe are essential for brands to trust the agents.